Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Burning Hints Fantasy Football. Here with Hinty, and I'm Burns, and we're going over last week's results for our redraft league. So, do you want to just go one by one? Do you want to focus on any of the trades, Hinty? What do you want to? How do you want to do this here?
Let's go through last week's games and then we can cover any trades that were made.
Cool. All right, so we had. I'm gonna start with me versus Stein because man, it was a rough week for me. This was like a horrible week. I feel like for fantasy in terms of points, just in general, a lot of teams just couldn't get really over 100. We had a couple people. You had a good week, but um, I think pretty much everyone was like way under. I mean, I lost to Stein, and Stein didn't even set his lineup, so it was a pretty brutal week for me. Um,
Um,
any takeaways from this?
well, just in general on the year, I think I saw a stat where we have the fewest touchdowns since like 2017 through like the first 6 weeks of the year.
hmm
Um, and then with that, it's like I think it's close to almost 100 fewer touchdowns than last year. So
Yeah, I know it's
that
20%. We're at 20% lower or 22% lower points in fantasies thus far this year compared to last year. So
Yeah, so it's been rough
sucks.
for everyone so far. But I mean, I think your team still looks pretty solid. You're gonna have Dak back here, so that'll help out your QB position. Um, Other than that, I think your team will probably make a recovery. I feel like at some point you got to just bench DJ Moore. Though.
Well, the idea was I was like, okay, I'm gonna play DJ Moore because Baker's not in, and maybe they'll just force feed him with PJ Walker because he played okay with PJ Walker. But I think unless Darnold plays, I'm not gonna play DJ Moore for the rest of the year. It's
Yeah,
just awful. But it was a lot of buys this week, and then Hopkins still wasn't in, so it's not like I could have really played anyone besides
yeah,
Dobbs, and he was what
but
2 point.
yeah,
Would
I
have made a
mean,
difference.
I think your team still looks pretty solid. It sucks to get the loss, but I mean, I'm shocked your team's 2-4.
I think I'm gonna have a resurgence soon. Now that Hop's back, it's a
Yeah,
big help, and Elliott's looking a little bit better after a really slow start. But I mean, Stein's team, Brees Hall, the Jets, all these
and
rookies, it's sort of working out.
I mean, I will say I don't think Garrett Wilson's gonna have that breakout until maybe the end of the year. Because I mean, honestly, Wilson just looks. The team doesn't have faith in him to let him throw.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, definitely Brees Hall is panning out and looks amazing.
yeah. I mean, this is good. This feels like a run the ball and defense team. You know, so it's
Yeah,
not gonna be a lot of chances for Garrett Wilson, but I mean, I think it's going better than expected than what I thought for Garrett Wilson. I mean, 36 number 37 PPR wide receiver. It's not bad. It's not bad.
yeah,
And if Michael Thomas ever gets healthy, he's got a pretty good team with Travis Kelsey, Mixon starting to get his touchdowns in. Mahomes is playing pretty well. Mooney had a good week, so
yeah.
definitely not a bad team.
So
And Pollard had his one bad week. I feel like Pollard's been really good.
yeah. All
And
right.
then
Well,
yeah, but you had a good week beating up on Kuzi, one of the top players in the league. Uh,
yeah. I got pretty lucky last week with Dobbins going down mid game with the injury, um, and then just Tampa Bay's offense looking awful.
yeah.
Um, he did get to play Najee Harris against me, who, with the 11.9 fantasy points, is his highest point total on the year.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was just surprised he played him against Tampa's run defense. I mean, he's had a real struggle this year, but I feel like maybe he's just starting to get healthy. But yeah, he's a scary pick. But I mean, I
Yeah,
loved
so-
your Geno Smith, even though it didn't really work out that well. Geno Smith, Alec Pierce. You have some like sneaky players that are starting to like sort of be on the come up.
Yep,
Um,
I'll be playing Gino again this week, and I'll also be playing Alec Pierce again this week
yeah, Alec Pierce
against
is
against the worst pass defense in the NFL.
yeah, that's pretty good. And Mark Andrews is still doing his
Con-
doing his thing. essentially.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think McManus is also great to have just because now that Rippion's in instead of Wilson, not that
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
more field goals with less trust in your quarterback. I think they'll kick more field goals and it'll be less of a worry. Any other takeaways from this game? I mean, it was just
Um, I really think that Kuzi's missing having that Nick Chubb on his roster. I think that really is going to affect him for the back half of this year.
yeah, and I think he's got to get I think Patterson's. I think it's a full season injury, right?
No, Patterson will be back. I think he's on IR. I think he should have 1 more week or 2 more weeks, and then he should be back.
Okay. Well, you could still always put him on the IR and save a roster spot, pick someone up. I'm surprised
Yeah.
he benched Pitts because I feel like even though he has Everett, you gave up the assets for Pitts. You play Pitts,
Yeah.
you know, and it's
That's I understand that feeling. That's what I've been doing in the Dynasty League, which actually I didn't start Pitts last week for his only touchdown of the year.
yeah.
So,
Well, he matched his touchdown rate from last year, so
yep.
it's a positive thing because that's the one issue he's had. But I mean, Atlanta is frisky, man. I love Atlanta. They're really just fun to watch. Then we had one of the closest matches outside the weird tie thing. Rob Matz, tough loss
Yeah.
to Nick P. And Nick P coming up at 4-2, looking good. Any
I
takeaways from
believe
this game?
did he start 0-2 again this year? And
He definitely
has been
struggled
on
at the
the
beginning of the year. Yeah, and I was
yeah.
like, no chance he wins this year, and he'll win. I'm sure.
Nick P is just the guy who he always starts slow, but he's always got a really good team, and he always fills it in with these random running backs. This year, not so much, but
Yeah,
um,
Gordon's not going to be his solution, but Burrow going off last week was a huge, huge, huge help.
yeah.
Ingram was a smart play, and then Suckup. I have Suckup in one of my leagues. I was just like, he can't kick the ball more than 50 yards, really, but he gets his kicks now, especially with the Tampa Bay offense just really struggling.
Yeah.
Big play.
And then I don't know. Rob Matz's team really needs some help here. I think honestly, Russell Wilson being out will help Rob Matz's team.
Yeah, he's going to force him to get a new QB.
Yeah, who almost will guaranteed put up more points than what Russ has been doing this year.
Yeah, and also he's got some issues where it's like Keenan Allen hasn't played at all. Waller's been a huge bust, so there's like that
Yeah.
little bit of a struggle. And Michael Carter, I'm not sure it's going to be that viable as Brees Hall takes more and more carries because I feel like
Yeah.
it looked really good at the beginning of the year, and then now it's like he'll be okay. Like he's a nice plug and play if you really are desperate during the bye weeks, but not really sure
Yeah.
after that.
I don't think you'll get 0 from Michael Carter. I don't see them giving
No,
Hall
yeah,
the entire workload. And
but he seems like a
Hall is
four
really
to
good.
8 point guy. Not a high
Also,
ceiling.
I mean, he actually has that touchdown vulture ability because Hall has that breakout ability to get downfield. And I mean, 2 weeks ago, Hall had like 2 runs where he got tackled within the 5, and then Carter came in and got the touchdown. So,
Yeah, Carter had 10 carries for 21 yards and 2 touchdowns last week for a 16
yeah.
point. Yeah,
So, Carter has, I think he's going to get you probably 4 or 5 each week. And then he has the touchdown vulture ability. So, I mean,
yeah,
I don't hate it, but he's definitely not an RB2,
yeah,
which he doesn't have to worry about because he now has Nick Chubb on his team.
yeah. Eckler and Chubb is a pretty beastly combo, and I think once they get like a good week at both times, Chubb going against the Patriots is just any team going against the Patriots, Bill Belichick's always just scary. Yes. Okay. So moving on to Chris Smart and Alex Herrera, a blowout this week, but they're pretty even teams. But it just really came down to the Bengals and Jamar Chase really finally going off, and Kenneth Walker. It is Kenneth Walker season. If you have Kenneth Walker, it looks pretty good. Anything you
Yeah.
got to take from this game?
I mean, I think like it's very weird to see Alex's teams because in my head I'm just like he's a dominant force because of the Dynasty League, but he's been struggling so far in like the in this league. But I mean, he does have Chris Olave, who is back this week, looked good in Thursday Night Football in Week 7 for this. And then Tyreek Hill, number 1 in receiving yards, and I think Lamar Jackson will get back to form once he gets Bateman back.
Yeah, I think this was going to be just a brutal week for him anyway, just because he had so many people on bye. He had Henry, Williams, Jacobs on bye, Kelly went on IR, so he was like, who do I play at running back? And he had Eno Benjamin, which was like an okay play, and then Tevin Coleman, which was like, let's hope it works. So it was just kind of tough. And then Olave, he played instead of Lazard, which was, you assumed that he was supposed to be healthy, and he really didn't play that much because I guess they decided, oh, we're not going to put him on the injury report, or they put him on the injury report, but the whole play, I mean, he wasn't a healthy scratch or anything like that. But then he didn't see the field that much. It was like, what, Kevin White got a big play, and then Jawan Johnson had like 2 touchdowns. So it was a
Yeah,
weird week for the Saints. It's unfortunate because Lazard is just becoming kind of a touchdown machine.
he
So
really
he's like a
is.
must play at this point after a really slow start. Yeah. But it's nice to see, Chris Smart's team's pretty solid. He's got good bench. Etienne, he's got Algier, he's got A Rob who's finally starting to play. Elijah Moore, who knows about that situation, but hey, if he gets traded, it might be really good. But I think if you're Chris Smart, man, that's a really solid team.
Yeah. I mean, and it's been, to be quite honest, I mean, you're starting Rodgers and Stafford are your QBs, and I
They're
think both
brutal.
of them, their better days are ahead of them at the QB position for this year. Especially if the Packers actually do go out and get another receiver. But Barkley and Walker and Williams will be solid, like just solid all the way through everywhere else. So I mean, I
Got
think the
great
QB
receivers.
area is just the one thing that he needs to improve, and I think both of them will have a better back half of the year than they have the starting half. So,
Yeah, I think if anyone asked you if Rogers and Stafford would be outside like the top 16, and I think Rogers is at 20, and I think Stafford's at 26 after just looking at them both. Oh, Stafford's at
yeah.
23, but that's pretty brutal. I mean, it's been a really weird fantasy year, especially with QBs. But yeah, I think both teams will be all right. They're both right in the middle. But now we're moving on to Chris Gregg, who's continuing his strong season, going against Zach, who had just a tough week outside of Josh Allen, who's been sort of carrying him the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Anything you got to pull out from this game? I mean, Stevenson was great.
Um, I mean, yeah, Stevenson's great, but it does look like Harris might be back this week. And granted, I don't expect Harris to come in and get 20 carries, but I don't expect Stevenson to have 19 carries and stay as the RB1. And you have Clyde, who's now potentially nothing. But uh, I mean, we haven't talked about the trade that just happened, but he does have running back help now. So
Yeah, it's tough. Well, I think Clyde will still get touches. I can't imagine. Like I know they were saying Pacheco is going to be the number one now, but 3 weeks from now, you never know. I feel like the Chiefs are always funky with the receiver or running backs.
But I mean, last week he had 9 carries for 33 yards, and if that's the amount of touches he gets, it's not going to be worth anything.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't that different from what he's been doing recently in terms of carrying. He just was getting more receiving stuff. He had like one week I'm looking at Tampa Bay where he had 20 carries.
Yeah,
But other than that, he was single digits every week. Tough week just because he had Josh Allen going against Stephon Diggs, so pretty much negated that. And then one great thing for Greg is Henderson, man, because Akers gone, and now he's got probably the Rams' number one running back, especially without getting CMC. But now he's got CMC with the
yeah,
Niners stuff. But also, yeah, I think the Stevenson stuff going against the Browns. If you got a running back going against the Browns, just start him. Just because the Browns' defense,
yeah,
literally anyone against the Browns, their defense is just terrible, just absolutely awful. So that's always just something to look for. But outside of that, I don't really have anything that like really strikes me. Duvernay is starting to fall to where we thought he'd be at the beginning of the season after a really strong start. Because I picked him up in like 1 or 2 leagues, and I was like, not really doing the same stuff that I
yeah.
thought, hoping he was going to continue. But Schuster had his first big game this week.
Yeah,
Um,
Juju had his first big game, and I'm not sure if that continues. And then Jeff Wilson for him is basically negated at this point. Um, AJ Dillon, I have no idea what's going on with the Packers backfield right now. He had the one big game week 1, but since then it's been nothing.
yeah, I think the Packers just offense in general is just not, you know, I mean, Lazard's getting touchdowns. Besides that, it's pretty bad. Uh,
Yeah,
it's nice to see Rondale Moore. I was surprised by that 6 targets. I think it like the Hopkins is actually going to help everything, just help everyone.
yeah,
Because he could have had a touchdown. I thought there was like that one fade where he almost had it. I mean, he could have had like 15 points this week. Would have been like a really big week for him. So I think Rondale Moore after like, and I feel like forever people have been saying he'll be good, and I think actually he might start to make a turn and like show what he was drafted for and
yeah.
hyped up in college for.
I do think it hurts him to not have Hollywood there because I think if he was like the third read on that target, that offense could really click and he'd be kind of like the Isaiah McKenzie for the Bills, who gets a ton of targets and just
He's had a bad
you get
couple
your
weeks.
yeah. And then Terry McLaurin, I think, is interesting with Heineke coming in.
Yeah,
Um, just because he hyper targeted him last year. Granted, Curtis Samuel and Dotson weren't there, but there's a chance that Heineke comes in and goes right back to hyper targeting McLaurin, which will put him back to being relevant.
yeah, I think that's a plus not having Wentz for a while, and it's just gonna make more game planning to get people to the receivers and less like depending on Wentz. It's gonna be a little bit more interesting. We'll see if Howell ever makes an appearance and if that helps or hurts anything. Anything else you want to bring up with this game, Zach and Chris Gregg? We can go over the trade later, obviously, but
Yeah, I think I'm good on that game.
all right. So finally, Snowball beating up on Lestrange. He's having a really brutal year this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, just not really going well outside of he had a tough draft, but AJ Brown really kind of worked out, but the running backs are not working. Connor, has been a huge bust, and Taylor may be able to save him to just make like a 6 seed at the end of the year, but we'll see. Anything to take away from this game?
Um, I think Connor desperately needs to make some moves here in terms of his team. Because I mean, especially with the news with Russell Wilson, Judy is going. I think is really going to lose any value that he had, which wasn't much to begin with. Hopefully, Jonathan Taylor, I believe, is playing this week, which will help. And then I think you should probably stick with David and Njoku each week at the tight end position.
Yeah,
Um, just safer floor, and he's been pretty solid all year. Um, and I think Herbert will get it turned around for the back half of this year. Hopefully, once Keenan Allen gets back after the bye, because I don't expect him to play today. Um, I think Herbert should turn it around after the bye.
I think he'll turn around this week. I think Seahawks just don't have a good defense. So, and Denver has actually one of the best defense in the league. They've been clamping down on pretty much
Mhm.
everyone. And you got the Seahawks, Atlanta, and then San Francisco's gonna be tough. But after that, it's pretty not the greatest defenses. So I think Herbert, number 8 quarterback, has just really been a bad year for quarterbacks again. It's like surprising to see he's that high up, even though his year's been probably a disappointment for what most people think. But I think Kareem Hunt, I mean, you expect a little bit more. Robinson, I don't know what you want to do with him. He's still getting touches, but the Jaguars are just sort of a weird team at this point. Whether like they're actually going to start to look good after looking a little bit exciting early in the year, and then now it's
Yeah.
not so exciting.
And ETN's been eating into the touches and getting more touches in there and becoming more of a factor. So
Yeah, and they were giving. I mean, Jamichael Hasty had a touchdown last week. Had like a 60-yard touchdown. They're giving it to weird stuff. It's like the classic like Doug Peterson, big backfield. A lot of different guys getting touches and like keeping it creative. So it's always like a kind of a weird play here. I think he's just gotta hope that Jonathan Taylor can start going off. Connor hopefully gets healthy and somehow he can turn around his season because it's not the team's that bad. It's just it just hasn't.
underperforming.
He's yeah the it's just not unlucky with the running back start. Just top two running backs going out right away is gonna hurt you, unless you're Nick P.
Yeah.
So you want to move over to the trades here? I know you had one big
Well, we didn't
trade.
cover Steven's side. I'm just
Oh,
curious what your
yeah,
thoughts are
Steven.
on Steven's team
I like
at three
Steven's
and
team.
two. Yeah,
It sucks that Hollywood's out, but I think that the fact that Smith is getting touches, even with Brown, I mean the Eagles are just that good. I like
yeah,
that Kittle's finally had a good game, and then Kyler Murray, I think it's gonna keep going up.
yeah.
Having he looked
Having Hop back is a big difference.
yeah, 17 points isn't like a ton, but I think we're gonna start to see it start to get better because they looked so much better last week than they were almost
Yeah.
unwatchable the last couple weeks. So it was pretty
Also,
bad.
they really didn't have to move the ball too much offensively because
Yeah, two pick
Andy Dalton did
sixes.
it for him.
Yeah, and then Kamara is finally definitely back after a really rough start to the season. He's been good the last couple weeks,
Yeah.
but I think just seeing it consistently. And Fournette, like he's not amazing, but he's gonna get you points. And Godwin seems to be getting healthy, so it's like pretty solid. If Tua ever comes back and starts to look like he did mid-season or early season, I think he's got like a pretty solid team. And 3-3, I mean, you're in it, definitely in it.
And honestly, if Tua comes back and starts looking the way he did early in the season, he could easily go out and trade either Murray or Tua
Yeah,
and get another wide receiver in there for his team.
yeah, it's gonna be weird. I mean, we'll see. I think what you want to wait is for that Detroit or Chicago. I mean, he's got 3 games against like a bunch of defenses. I think Chicago's probably the best defense out of the three, but Cleveland and Detroit just really not good defenses. So if Tua has some big games, you can start to think about maybe trading him off, or if you like uh, him more than Kyler, you could do the opposite way. It's
Yeah.
just it's good to have two good quarterbacks, even though I mean Tua is still a bit of a question mark, but I'm sure people are willing this year with all the bad QBs to make a move.
Yeah.
Um, I know we saw Pacheco get picked up by Nick P, which was brutal.
Yeah.
Classic Nick P.
I wanted to pick him up early today, but I couldn't because even though the news was that Swift was going to be ruled out last night at like 10 p.m., the platform didn't change it for him to be out until like 10:30 this morning for me.
Yeah, I was not
So
up. I was donezo from homecoming yesterday. Not a fun day. But you had one of the big blockbuster trade with
yeah,
Chris Gregg, which
immediately backfired.
which you're having a little bit of a regret, buyer's remorse. Um,
Um,
what was your intention coming into this?
my intention was knowing that Christian McCaffrey just got traded. I didn't expect him to have a good, like, I don't expect him to be used much more outside of the goal line, and you're hoping that he falls in the end zone. And it just kind of scared me. And I wasn't even sure if he'd play. DeAndre Swift missed 2 games before the bye. They said he probably could have played before the bye. We go through the bye, and we're still sitting him through Dallas. And I was really hoping to be able to play him today. And then, honestly, Sutton with Russell Wilson is better than Michael Gallup, personally. And now the news is that Russell Wilson has a partially torn hamstring, so Sutton does not have uh, Wilson there. Hopefully, Sutton still gets the majority of the targets, and maybe Denver's offense looks better without Russell. Um, and then, honestly, DeAndre Swift, even like even with the this week sucking, after this week, I don't have the bye week anymore because now that CMC's with San Francisco, he has a bye week in like week 10. But after this week for Swift, it's Miami, Green Bay, Chicago, New York, Buffalo, Jacksonville, Minnesota, Jets, Carolina, Chicago, which are all great teams to play a running back against.
Yeah, I
Even
think. Hey, you finish.
I was gonna say even Buffalo is a good team to like run against.
Yeah. I don't think it's like it looks really bad day one, but I don't think it's really like that bad. Because I mean, I don't see San Francisco running CMC into the ground, and I don't think that CMC is even the best player on that offense. I still think that Debo's still the best player. Just whenever I
Yeah.
watch him play, it's like insane watching him. And CMC, I mean, he still looks great, but he definitely doesn't look like the guy that he was like 2 years ago. Um, and I think Swift, man, if that Detroit team can start to move, it's really going to be something like awesome. And then Sutton, I still think I've always been on this, and I think you kind of were on the same side a little bit for at least for a while. Was I think that Sutton's just a lot
Mhm.
better than Judy, and I
Yeah,
think he's like
I
the clear
still
number
think
one.
he's much more talented than Judy is.
Yeah, he's actually like produced. We've seen him do it, and Judy's
Mhm.
like good, but I don't. I think that Sutton's definitely the number one guy there, and I still think that there's some hope in It just seems so off. Like, how is this happening in Denver? And I mean, Gallup, I think it could work out, but we don't really still know how healthy he is. It could be a
Yeah.
really bad trade for you, but I think I don't think it's as bad as when I first looked at it, and because I was just like I was a bias of CMC going to San Francisco, and I was like, God damn it! But I really feel like San Francisco is gonna. I don't see him getting like 20 plus touches all season.
Yeah, I
They're
don't
gonna be
either.
waiting. This
Um,
was like let's win in the playoffs, like 25 touches in the playoffs. But now that that division doesn't look so good, I don't think they're that worried about making in the playoffs anyway.
yeah. Um,
I feel like
and
there was
then that was the only trade. There was a trade discussed in the group chat between Connor and Kuzi, but apparently one of them never accepted it, so it's not going
yeah.
through.
I got some trade offers from Kuzi that I would not have taken. It's just not. We discussed beforehand. I won't air it out. But
Yeah.
do you want to go over any of the dynasty trades? Because I know we had a couple.
Yeah,
You had one
I
great
sent
trade. Yeah.
I sent out two trades, and actually, one is immediately fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and the other one I think it's probably a good move for both of us. At least in like just looking at like where the teams are.
Yeah.
But the first one we'll go over is mine with Chris Gregg in the Dynasty League, where I traded Jeff Wilson on Wednesday for a third round pick and 12 fab, and I think I won that trade.
Yes. It
No
was
matter what I
pretty.
picked for that third round pick, or if I trade the third round pick, I think I win that trade because I think any value for Jeff Wilson moving forward is gone.
Yeah, unless CMC like completely ruins his both of his knees and he's done for his career, it's pretty much a win for you, which is like just a really great timing. And it's good that potential bad trade, that's a worrisome trade with you and
Yeah,
Chris Gregg. Now it's sort of flipped both ways, so you both get like a definite, at least feeling good day one off each of the trades. Because this one it was like, oh man, what timing. Um,
yeah.
Third round
And then
pick.
the other one was I traded Adam Thielen away for another third round pick from Chris Smart.
Yeah, and we discussed this one earlier, and I was just like, it's a really good trade for you. I'm surprised you got a third round pick. Because Thielen, I mean, he's still decent, but he's got a big contract. I think he'll might last next year. Just the way the contract, if they cut him, they don't save that much money. They only save 6 million. But there's no way he's lasting his whole contract. If they cut him, they save 14 million his last year. Which there's no way he's worth 14 million. So I mean, you're just piling up picks here. It's
I mean, I will say in terms of Chris Smart's team, who's
he
four and
wants to
two.
win. Yeah, he wants to win now. So that's sort of the
Yeah,
idea.
you want to win now. He's got really solid running backs. And his wide receivers right now look a little rough. Mostly because Keenan Allen's been out all year. You don't know when he's getting back. Bateman's been out the past few weeks. And this week he's playing Nico Collins. And I think if Thielen wasn't on bye, he'd be playing Thielen over Nico Collins.
Yeah, I mean his
Um,
his front is decent. Right now, I think he's got Diggs on bye. Yep,
yeah,
and then
Diggs on bye.
Julio Jones hasn't
He's got
worked out.
Sanders
I
on
don't know
bye.
half of his players on the receivers. Landry hasn't played since week one. He's had Will Fuller, who hasn't been signed yet. He's been holding on to Will Fuller all year, so he definitely needed some depth. And giving up, a
Yeah.
third round pick, I feel it's like a lot, but it makes sense if you're trying to make the playoffs now, which it looks like he probably will.
Um, I mean, I threw this out there to him just because it's you think about a third round pick and you're like that's a lot, but I mean, if I read off like last year's third round picks, I would say only one of them is two of them are probably relevant right now, and one of them's had a relevant game. But I
Gotcha.
mean, you got Tyler Algier who's playing, but I mean, it's because he's had a ton of injuries in front of him. Alec Pierce looks legit already and looks good, but then Tolbert, McBride, Menchie, um, Calvin Austin, Zamir White, um, Matt Carroll. And
Yeah.
then the other ones that are interesting are you've had Shakir for the Bills have the one good game because Crowder and McKenzie were both down. And then Kyron Williams, who may have something in front of him now, but you're not sure yet.
Yeah. I would just say that I think last year was a very weak year in the draft. I think they had great receivers, but I think next year with a lot more quarterbacks, I think it's going to be a little bit more. What's the word? I guess
Deep.
a little more juicy, deep. Yeah. I think it's gonna be a little more exciting next year. I think that when we looked at the top five picks, what Drake London's been good and Brees Hall's been good, like legit, and then Olave, Kenneth Walker,
Yeah.
Watson had a
I
couple
mean,
good games. It's been a
we'll
weak
see.
draft. I think Pierce was good in the late. That was a great pickup by Alex, but you know, and then Alec
Yeah.
Pierce. Yeah, actually, you're right. Alec Pierce has probably been one of the best rookies. But yeah, it's dynasty. It's gonna be growing pains and just learning for everyone, just because it's a little bit different than what people
Yeah.
are
I
used to.
mean, and I have a trade log now, so we'll see what that pick turns into and what it looks like, like a year from now.
It's gonna be interesting. All right.
Probably, I was thinking probably after the trade deadline this year, we could do a recap of all the trades that have happened and
Yeah, we could do a
think,
regrading of draft picks.
yeah, regrading of the draft picks that happened and the trades that have happened so far in the year
Yeah,
or
that'd be
going
fun.
back. So
Kind of crazy already looking at the draft last year because it's
yeah.
I don't know. Some of the best players were not right off the bat, but I mean, Brees Hall was a good pick, definitely.
Also, other people need to make trades in the Dynasty League because out of 14 trades, I think all but 3 of them have involved me.
All right, guys. Hinty is challenging you guys to make more
And
trades.
I
I
take
think
that back, all but 2.
all but two. Ooh, even
And
worse.
those were
Man,
both made by Alex.
Alex. Yeah, because I think me and Alex did a trade. Yeah, me and Alex did a
Yeah,
good
you and
trade.
Alex had a trade, and Alex and Connor made a trade, which that one's going to be fun to talk about because that was the Derrick Henry trade, and he got Javante Williams, who is hurt now but looks good moving forward, and Kenneth Walker in the draft.
Yeah. Well, if anyone's interested, contact me about DeAndre Hopkins. Gonna need a good price though. Gonna need a good price. Both leagues. Both leagues. So just let me know. Anything else you want to bring up before we get started with
Um,
week 7?
I think that's it for the week.
All right, guys. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. All right. Let's make sure we streamed. Formula One sucks.